Okay, so when it comes to YouTube, it's an interesting topic of conversation. I look at YouTube as my primary job. I love what I do. I do this every single day. I try to create content that I think some people at least find interesting and that they want to listen to. And that's how I tend to approach it. I like to just kind of talk about weird stuff and go from there. I haven't really dove into the educational side of it from the creator standpoint because I don't really have the patience to do it myself. But when it comes to my kids, right? When it comes to my kids, and I watch my daughter watch Peppa Pig or Little Baby Bum, and she enjoys watching that stuff on YouTube or on Netflix. And I ask myself, for one, how much screen time is too much? You don't want to give them too much at a young age, so I really don't. But when she gets older, how much information and knowledge is she going to be getting from these services, from these online video services? And is it going to be better than maybe having a public education? Now, for one, I don't agree. I don't think that at all. Because I do believe in the value of public education. However, there are people out there that are thinking differently, and that's what this whole story is. So what we have here is parents are pulling their four kids out of school to educate them using Netflix and YouTube to prepare them for the real world. As a parent, I have a lot of issue with this because while there is a lot of things that I go to YouTube for in order to get educated on, the real world is not necessarily one of them. It's like, how do I fix this particular item, or how do I update this particular program, or so on and so forth. But let's find out more. So a couple having pulled their four children out of school and plan to educate them using Netflix and YouTube. The stay-at-home mom, Taylor Catron here, 24, and her husband Derek first began schooling their oldest son, Dereon, at home in Ohio in 2016. So we have two parents under the age of 30 that think that Netflix and YouTube are the best for their kid. Okay, this is them. I mean, they look like a happy enough couple, right? They had the other kids and stuff. So, let's see here. Since they have had since three more kids, Arity, Avani, and Derek James, who's 8 months, and hope to one day begin traveling around the world, schooling them as they go. And this is what you really should pay attention to, right? It's their plan for not having a life where they plant roots. It's really just, let's travel around the world, and we're just going to teach our kids using Netflix and using YouTube, and that's how they're going to get the education. Never mind the in real world education they're going to get from haranguing it around the world. So he says here that there's so much not taught in schools that we want our children to learn, and I don't believe in standardized testings and all that hoopla, said Taylor. Look, I don't believe in standardized testing either, but there are things you do learn in school. And the biggest one above all else, by the way, is socialization. Socialization and how to work together and how to work with other people is basically like the bedrock of our society in a number of ways. And so those, if you start raising the kids in isolation, even with their amongst each other, they're not learning from other kids. They're not learning from other experiences, and you are going to give them a bit of a detriment in regards to that. We says here, what we do works really well for us. Dude, your kids are young. They are young. All right. What it works well for you right now is not going to work well for you in the future. Our kids are so smart and are always amazed after having conversations with them because it's okay. My daughter, my oldest daughter, is almost 2. And I love watching her look at the world because I always wonder what's in her head. Right. And I just taught her to play peekaboo, and it's the cutest thing on the planet. And I'm always watching her, and I always just I look forward to having those conversations with her to ask her how she sees things. But that doesn't mean that she's still not going to be in a position where she still has to learn things. It is my job as a parent to teach her. Yes, 100%. But I can't teach her everything because I do not have the relevant skills to teach her everything. I can teach her to read and write and all those kind of things and to do basic arithmetic. You get into algebra and geometry, anything with decimals, and I'm screwed. But there are teachers out there that have gotten the training, the education to work with their kids. And I've been reading up on the whole thing about kids and reading. And like, if you read to your kids, how just beneficial it is to them versus just showing them something on TV. It has so much more value to them if you read to them directly, if you interact with them directly. This feels like iPad parenting to the nth degree. So these parents can then move on with their life and go and like, well, we want to travel. So obviously we're going to load up a little bit of a baby Einstein on the iPad, and little Derek James over here is going to be able to get the education he so aptly deserves. It doesn't make And I mean, like, I get why, but it's so dumb. The parents have chosen to not use formal classes or tests or to enforce a strict timetable. Instead, they take their children on regular hikes and to visit cultural centers like Cincinnati's Children's Museum and the city's Contemporary Arts Center and the Cincinnati Zoo. All those are good things, and you should do those on top of having a you want to have a routine, you want to have a schedule. I cannot even begin to go through this. Okay. The main education tool they use here is Netflix, where the children watch nature, wildlife, and environmental documentaries like Nature's Weirdest Events, Age of Tanks, and Blue Planet. We let the kids pretty much take charge because that's a thing. Whatever they ask about or want to know about is what our lesson will be or what we plan for a future lesson. We try to do a lot of play-based learning as well. I think their heart's in the right place, but it's just their methodology is just pretty terrible. I mean, don't get me wrong, the kids look happy, but it's the long-term effects you got to think about here. They say here we do some structured learning. We have various workbooks we use, but we try to keep it as minimal as possible. I want the kids to learn through hands-on experiences. We eventually want to school them around the world and travel to different countries and continents and learn about everything literally on the go. We want them to learn through real life. And I get that. And you can do that, but you still have to have them on some kind of schedule. By not keeping them to a timetable, by just letting them get to it when they want to get to it, does not give them the proper tools they need for what's going to happen later on in life. It's just not going to do it. Kids need structure. They don't necessarily need insane amounts of discipline, but they need structure. And they need to know what's going on, and they need you to be the ones to guide them. Like, there's tons of books on this. It says here that there are so many lessons that can't be taught in a classroom of 38, which I do agree with that mindset. There are far too many kids in classrooms. We do need to find a way, invest more money in education, hire more teachers, and then spread it out a bit so children do get individual hands-on time. And I get why they say that, and that is a very valid concern. So it says right now the plan is to continue homeschooling and eventually world school when you're financially able. I don't understand it. What are you going to do that's financially able to do? Taylor says that she doesn't like either the methods used in mainstream schools or the content of the normal syllabus, saying mostly what we find unappealing about traditional school is that all about standardized testing and regurgitating information. Oh my God, kids learn. Okay. Kids learn through repetition. So that regurgitating of information is ultimately based around the concept of learning through repetition. Like, that's what it is. This is very frustrating. I'd have a hard time talking to them if I was talking to them about parenting. It says you're not there to learn, you're there to recite information and get good test scores. Well, that's part of it, but you are there. You learn through reciting that information, learning that information, and then that is meant to lead to good test scores. The problem comes from the overabundance of homework that kids get. When kids go to school during the day and they start way too early, for one, they need to start like after 8 a.m., which some places are starting to do. And two, when they give them just like a couple hours of homework every single night, that ends up really dragging, really kind of holding them down. The key is to not give them homework and to do it all inside of the class day. The problem, though, is when you have 38 kids and one teacher, there's going to be a fair amount of homework because the teacher, is going to get overwhelmed. And that's, again, it's a systemic problem that just stems all the way through all this stuff. So not to mention all the important events that they don't teach, like accurate historical events, African-American culture, and history. On top of that, it doesn't nurture imagination and creativity. Children aren't meant to sit down and be quiet for 6 to 8 hours a day. No, they're not, which is why they get recess a couple times a day when they're in elementary school, and they get time to go run around and burn off energy, so on and so forth. It's not like this kind of stuff. It hasn't been talked about or researched or, practiced forever. They were supposed to run around and touch things and ask a billion silly questions, which they do. They do. Taylor admits to being concerned about homeschooling could mean your children don't interact enough with other kids or people, but adds, my children have lots of friends that they see regularly and absolutely no problem making new friends. My oldest is the most outgoing child I've probably ever met. Taylor also encourages anyone skeptical of her and Derek's approach to keep an open mind. Well, of course they want you to keep an open mind. They want you to keep an open mind because that's how they're going to justify it in their own mind. I understand, like I said, I understand why they want to do this. I understand what drives them to do this. I understand all of those things. What I have an issue with here is like the approach, it feels so just disjointed. We'll do this on some days, but we don't want it to be too hard. We don't want it to be structured. We don't want there to be a timetable. We don't want there to really be a routine. And that is doing fundamental damage to their children. Again, heart's in the right place, and I get why they don't like some schools, and I get that. But this is not like, I don't even like homeschooling, but I prefer homeschooling to this. Really, this is just, I don't know. Am I overreacting here? Am I going too far? I want to hear your thoughts, your opinions. Let me know down in the comments below. I will talk to you guys later about this one. Have yourself a great day, and peace out.